Hey guys, all the Vanguard boys. I know it's been a long time since I've posted any content, but I'm back. I'm here, and hopefully I'll be able to bring you some more stuff soon, including some standard content with the new Hex Orb support coming out. But today I bring you another Malkuth Melekh deck profile from a tournament that I got first place with. This has been a deck that I've been, developing and evolving since Springfest, and I'm really excited about how the deck has evolved and shaped up. And this cool tournament hosted by Team Ham called Ham Invasion, I managed to get first place at, and I've been performing pretty well with the deck during the locals, and hopefully I can make it to BCS in December before the whole season ends. And yeah, so let's get into it. So I made some pretty different changes from the deck that are going to be a little bit, I don't want to say controversial, but different from what you might see in Protect 2 annual decks. But we'll start off with the normal, right? You've got 4 Malkuth Meleks, the Arcader, the regular, and this is a fully complete, now max rarity deck, and I'm pretty excited about that. So right there is that. And then 3. I definitely believe in the 4 and 3 ratio. You want to always see him first, and then you just need to see at least one Shin in order to get your combos going. Drawing 2 of these and no regular Malkuths always feels really, really bad. And the one weakness of Malkuth that is definitely more apparent is that the deck can lose to itself if you don't ensure the combos. And this is kind of how I built the deck, because I noticed through the 2 BCSs that I went to, usually I'm losing to myself. There are a few matchups that are extremely difficult, they're minor, and then of course you have what you have in the meta, but this deck does perform well in the meta. Now, here's the 4 Yafkaiels. This card will always be a staple. It's going to help you generate +1 every turn. Might even hit you trigger to apply early pressure. This is just one of those decks that has a decent early game, very aggressive, builds good numbers if you get the right hand, and Yafkail will help plus, especially since we have that new Protect 2 support with the Berry Angel. It's kind of a +2 with that combo right there. So that's simple right there. You want to have your engine cards, so you play Holy Lord. This Holy Lord will add either Malkuth or Shin Malkuth, and then of course, if you're ready to combo with it, you can add the Shin Malkuth on top of the deck, and then that way you can keep forming combos. Technically, you put any normal unit on there, but obviously you want to put Shin Malkuth on top. That way you can trigger the damage check and then do the rewrite combos to build 2 protect markers every turn, which is extremely important to the strategy. And he is on place, so not from hand, so he can still trigger his ability from the drop, which is another good way to generate combos. And then this is my power card right here, Amputation Angel. She is kind of your win con. I mean, all you gotta do is get one of her in the drop, and even on your first turn, you're still getting the +15k as long as she's in the same column as a protect marker. That's the important part. With the new grade 1 lineup, she doesn't have to be on the protect marker to gain that 15k. You can put the protect marker on the grade 1 behind you, and she still gets the +15, meaning that during your opponent's turn, she's 24, so they can't swing into it. Even if they try, they would have to have pretty big numbers to do that. And then, of course, on your second grade 3 turn, you can generate the Sentinel Restrict, which is how you apply pressure with only doing 3 attacks. So Amputation Angel is very important. I run her at 3 just because you're gonna see her, but you don't want to see her too early. She is not a grade 2 that's ideal to ride in the early game because she doesn't do anything until you have a protect marker on board. So you'd rather see Yafkail or Holy Lord because they're at least going to generate a +1 for you. And like I said, you want to build the deck around consistency. And speaking of consistency, thanks to Will of Procyon Gaming, this is not a card I ever really thought about looking at, but we've added Nurse of Hold Heart, and so I ended up cutting Adroid Zane to put her in the deck, which, in a way, I do kind of miss out on Adroid Zane. His ability for board removal was more consistent, and the fact that he picked up 10k was really important because even on the early game, you could, generate big numbers and apply pressure. But I feel like the consistency is a lot more important than that because you're going to hit those big numbers on the next turns anyways. And what she does is on plays from hand, and that's important. She is from hand. That is one detriment about her. You can't blast 1. You swap a unit card from your hand with a card in your damage zone. If you put a card with a grade 0 in it, you can take one of your opponent's units and put it into the damage zone and heal it. So you still have that board removal that the Adroid offers, but like I said, it has to be done from hand, and you have to put a trigger unit into the damage zone with that. That being said, you could always take one of your draw triggers and put that into the damage zone and swap it out. There are times where I just go even. I'll put a 15k trigger into the damage zone to add a 15k trigger from my hand into there and swap them. That way I can just get the board removal because I'm still technically having the trigger in hand, but let's say one of your pieces you need to ensure your Malkuth combos in your damage zone still, you can use her to grab it. Or let's say you've already used Yafkael that turn and something else in your damage zone you need, like a PG or something like that. Perfect for that, because she's also not a once per turn, unlike Yafkael, who is a hard once per turn. It's just you have to have her in your hand to trigger it. So once you use her on the field and she goes to your drop, she's at that point she's just a grade 2, so you'll never call her back from the drop. Now, getting into the grade 1 lineup, I still believe in playing Nakir. I know that like some decks will play other cards. They'll play like the promo that allows you to re-ride. They'll play the top 7 checker that adds Malkuth, which I've experimented with that one. But I think the versatility of this card makes it more important. One, easy 13k attacker on early games, on your grade 2 turn. Let's say you're going first and your opponent puts you to 1 damage. You go into your grade 2 turn, you trigger Yafkael's effect, and then you call this unit out. She's 13k, and so if you attack with her first, your opponent can't drop the quick shield. So they're 8,000, you're 13. It requires a 10k or above, so they're either going to take it or they're going to drop a more important card out of their hand. They can't just get the free guard with the quick shield in that regard. So it's really, really nice, because technically she'll go up bigger than Yafkael if Yafkael doesn't hit her trigger. So Yafkael will be swinging for 12, she'll be swinging for 13. So really, really nice numbers right there. Helps you build early pressure. And then of course she can not only add any of your Malkuths if you see them, but also she can add your grade 3 heal triggers, which also helps you play a defensive game as well. And then let's get going. And then this is one of my favorite new additions to the deck. This is Berry B Angel. Berry B Angel. And this card is extremely important in your defensive game. So basically the way that I play my deck now is if I know that I have 1 Berry B on board, I will put my protect marker or markers in the back row. So against a force deck, I'll put them 2 in the back row, because she can intercept from the back row, and she can also pick up an extra 5k of shield while on a protect marker. So the only downside is she has to be on a protect marker, right? And this is what the controversial thing is I cut Sectio Angel from the deck, so I'm no longer playing Sectio Angel. Sectio Angel can intercept as long as she's in the same column, kind of the way the Amputation Angel works, except she doesn't gain any power. She's just still, 10k interceptor, or, plus 10 on intercept. And then Sectio Angel has the ability to not be chosen, which is really nice in specific matchups, like against Mega Colony or like Narukami, things like that. And those are 2 decks that, yes, we're gonna have problems with, but honestly, the way that I thought about it is we're gonna have problems with those decks regardless if we see Sectio or not. And I have lost games in a BCS just because my grade 1 that I drew was Sectio and my grade 2 was Amputation Angel, and no way for me to generate advantage. And the nice thing about Berry B Angel is that when she's on Vanguard Circle, when ridden over, you Counterblast 1, put the top card of your deck in the damage zone, and then face up, and then you could choose a card from your damage zone and call it to Rear Guard Circle. You could technically even call that unit that you had put face up, so yeah, you'll be Counterblasted 1, but I mean, we're Angel Feather, we have ways to get around that, and a +1's a +1. And the cool thing is when you ride over her with Yafkael, there's a few combos you can do. So Yafkael right there can ensure that, like, let's say there's a trigger in the damage zone, you do Yafkael's skill first, add the trigger to your hand, and maybe if you knock a unit from Yafkael's rescue effect, then you can use Berry B Angel to call that one out. And there's even another combo, let's say you have Nurse of Hold Heart in your hand, and so you also have Yafkael. You can ride Nurse of Hold Heart, use Nurse of Hold Heart's skill to put Yafkael in the damage zone, swapping out a card in your damage zone. So let's say you have like a trigger in your damage zone, right? And then you use Berry Angel's skill to go ahead and counterblast and call out, Yafkael, and then you use Yafkael to get the card you just put into the damage zone using Berry B Angel's on ride skill, and you just have, with Nurse of Hold Heart, you can actually guarantee what unit you're going to be calling out, and it's a nice way to go +2 while ensuring you're having a unit on board instead of doing her skill to put a trigger to call a trigger, just nice net advantage, which is really, really cool. So Nurse of Hold Heart helps out with that combo, which is really, really nice. So Berry has become one of my favorite cards. She's incredibly defensive. She's also really, really good against force decks because of that extra 5k. Makes it so that way, when she's on 1 protect marker, she's a 25k interceptor. She'll put Malkuth at 37. You get a second protect marker and it puts it at 47. So against Luard, easy 1 card guard in the early game. You start setting up your back rows with 2 Berries, right? You start intercepting for really, really big numbers, and you're able to play that extra defensive game without using less cards from hand. And that's the thing, right? The thing that's really, really important is that Malkuth can survive on a low hand, but you can't survive on no hand. And that's the way that I built this deck, is that you still need your consistency pieces, and Berry is going to help ensure that. So she's got a good early Vanguard skill, and then she picks up a really good skill. And while she doesn't have resist like Sectio, I just think the benefits outweigh the negatives. And then the last of the grade 1s is I'm playing Persistence Angel. I did cut him down to 1 so that way I can fit Berry Angels. The reason why is you want to see Holy Lord first. All you need is 1 Holy Lord to get it. And then once you get your Persistence Angel in the late game, he's going to help you generate your, re-ride, and you can help, if you don't have another copy of the regular Malkuth, the Arcader, you can use him to stack it on top of your deck for your drive checks or doing other ways that you can grab it. You just need to make sure you're riding Malkuth every single turn. There are a lot of games that I still end up winning, they're grindy, but I'll go through like 10 protect markers. Crazy games I had when I was in Houston. But like you still win, and you have all these nice defenses and extra power. And then the last grade 1, so I ended up cutting Kyriel. I was trying out Kyriel for BCS, and then I realized as much as I love having Kyriel to 1-of, and she does exactly what I want her to do, she kind of sits in your hand as a dead card for a long time until you're ready to use her. So Lamedo right there, he kind of gives that same idea of late game ending pressure while you're still doing 3 attacks. You can use him to guard early because he's not going to do anything in the early game, and then when you're ready to go for your kill move, call Amputation Angel, put Lamedo right behind Malkuth, and you literally have 3 Sentinel restrict attacks. So this column's attacking for at least 30 unless you put some protect markers behind Malkuth, which is something I've actually done. And then you'll have like these columns with amputation. So this either could be a 70k column with Sentinel restrict, 70k column, 30 to 40k column with all 3 of them having a Sentinel restrict. When your opponent's at 5, they're not surviving that turn. There's just like no way unless their hand is like ungodly huge, which yes, can happen, but at that point you're applying so much pressure that's a good. He's an amazing win con along with Amputation Angel, and honestly, because you only play him as a 1-of, if you don't see him, it's fine, and if you see him, you just throw him in your drop, and then your opponent will get taken off guard because they generally speaking don't tend to see that coming. And then lastly, we're going to go into my trigger lineup. So 4 heals, pretty self-explanatory. Just because we can survive on healing every single turn doesn't mean that we don't want to take a lot of damage. I like having 1 counterblast. You want, that way you can do yourself with Yafkael, and you want to plus every single turn because you want to generate hand. The more hand you can generate early, it's nice, because the downside to Malkuth is that a lot of your combos go hand neutral. Yes, you're calling 3 units from the drop every turn, but you're also having to intercept with them, so that's kind of how it kind of helps make up for itself. But you'll build up hand by like having Yafkael every turn, and you keep 1 counterblast open by playing these defensively. And of course, plus healing is always nice. So wish that card would come SP. And then we're gonna go into my crit trigger lineup. I am just playing 6. The deck basically still applies a lot of damage without necessarily having to check critical triggers. It's nice when you hit it, especially early game. 6 I still feel like is enough for your drive checks to a lot of pressure, but a lot of times I'm also just adding Malkuth to my drive checks, so my opponent will usually do 2 to pass to have a very comfortable guard, and then if I end up checking one of these, then I'll throw it onto Amputation Angel. Now they have to guard a 70k 2 crit, no Sentinel Amputation Angel, and that still applies the same kind of pressure. So 6 crits is just fine. I'm comfortable with it. I want to play, and you're going to see here, a more heavy draw trigger lineup, because that is, I think, the secret to the deck, especially from what I've seen from a lot of my testing and a lot of other people playing. So I'm playing 4 draw PGs. I was actually experimenting with a 3-3 split, but I think with just having 4 PGs is just really nice. Sure, you could intercept a lot, but against matchups like gray and blue, those dragons are going to get too big. You need to have to perfect guard it, and so you're going to hit these in the damage zone. You'll +1, which is really nice off the draw, but then you can always get it out of the damage zone using Yafkael, using Nurse of Coldheart. So we have ways of just extending our uses for the PGs, which is fantastic. I love that about Angel Feather and its toolbox nature and its adaptability. I think that's what's going to keep Malkuth from being a strong deck for a long time, because it's a deck that rewards your matchup knowledge, how much you're comfortable with your deck, and understanding your lines of play while also adapting to every situation. And then lastly, I'm playing 2 vanilla draw triggers, so for 6 draws in total. It's definitely clutch. Like I said, this is the way to help generate a plus advantage without having draw engines, because you're not plussing a lot. You're having to discard a lot for when you're doing Malkuth's effect to have him Shin Malkuth right over Malkuth. You have to discard for Persistence Angel, who lets you draw, but you have to discard in order to stack. So that's like 2 cards you're having to discard every single turn, and so you make up by having Yafkael, and then you make up for it by having the draw triggers, which is really nice. And then by having those draw triggers, you can afford to discard from your hand to use a perfect guard. That way, you can just save one of your interceptors on board, because that's going to be an important part of the combos. And one combo that I really liked and has saved my butt a whole ton, especially when it comes to card economy, is that if I end up having a Shin Malkuth already in my hand when I've written Malkuth, something that I like to do, and I'll show you here. We're going to grab this card, we're going to grab this card, and we're going to pretend like I have a Malkuth on Vanguard Circle. Here, so we're going to pretend that's my soul right now. We're going to pretend this is in our hand, and this is here, and that these 2 are in the drop. And I'll just have one random card in my hand. So let's say I use Malkuth's skill to go ahead. I've got either no damage on board, or I'm got 1 card face down. I have no open counterblast, right? And you want to make sure that you're doing your ride still, but you also want to make sure that you can resolve Yafkael to be able to plus, because you're low on cards in your hand, or you don't want to discard as much. So what I do in this situation is, instead of using like Holy Lord from my hand to stack or something like that, I will pay the cost, revive the 3 units, and then take whatever damage from my deck from Malkuth's skill, because after you do that, you'll resolve it. And then I'll do Holy Lord Angel skill to do top 7 check. Maybe I'll add another Arcane or Malkuth, so you can plus there. And then you're going to stack the Shin that you already have in your hand. I mean, you can technically do this blind, which you're risking a little bit more, but then you'll stack that on top of your deck. And then you could trigger Yafkael's effect, so you counterblast, add this card to your hand, and then you'll take that damage, discarding the vanilla card that you don't need. And then you're able to superior ride your Malkuth Melekh, and you did that with just from the on-call effect, because you can choose the auto order and standby. Because once you check this, in the damage zone, it's in standby, and you can resolve their auto skills, or you can wait till this goes to the damage zone and then choose to do the auto skills. So by doing that, you're able to basically still grab a card, and you're triggering the damage check from Yafkael's skill in order to superior ride Malkuth Melekh. That's how you're going to ensure like your consistency. I'll do that a lot just to make sure that like I'm able to keep my reride going, while also ensuring that I still have a copy of like Malkuth in my hand. And then worst case scenario, if I'm really worried about like if I just am getting really unlucky and I'm just not getting Malkuth, an Arcane or Malkuth for my follow-up turn, which you want to make sure you always do, I just will always use Persistence Angel skill if I haven't used them that turn, or call one from the drop if I've already used the other one, Soul Blast out of my soul, do the draw card, discard thing, and then just stack this and make it part of the drive check. It's not as fun, you're not technically plussing with it, you're not adding it to your hand, your opponent knows that it's your next drive check, but you're still doing a 30k column. It's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, if that's your first attack right there, they still have to like guard for 1. So if they're worried about you hitting a trigger and they have to go 2 to pass, and let's say they're even a 4 deck and they're at 13,000, you're swinging for a 30k column. So these, you can't use 1 trigger. That only puts them to 28. So effectively they have to do 2 to pass by putting 2 triggers. So that's 30k of shield if they don't want to take your attack whatsoever just from that one. And then sure, you're going to check that, but then you might check a draw trigger or a crit trigger or anything else, and they still had to make it 2 to pass in order to guard your attack, because if they're doing 1 to pass, you might still hit that trigger and then might get punished. They also just genuinely might no guard it, and then if you hit that trigger and the second drive check and then they just got punished for no guarding, and then you're still able to apply that power to these columns, which they're plus 15k plus the protect markers. If you have an amputation angel, it gets even bigger, and Malkuth really is able to take advantage of that kind of tempoing. And that's the important part about Malkuth, is learning how to tempo with the deck, and it rewards you. And so I think this is the most optimal way to play the deck. The draw triggers really help out. Berry is an impressive part of my strategy, and I have just absolutely fallen in love with Protect 2. I just want to show off some of my favorite markers that I have here. So guys, that's the video here. Do want to give a little bit of shout out here to Will and Procyon Gaming, who you can see printed this awesome mat that I made as a meme for him and I in our epic Mega Colony versus Malkuth Melekh battles that we've had. He has a really cool shop and a lot of cool items for TCG supplies. I've been using his dice lately. They have a 10, a 5, a 10, 20, 30 side on them, a little critical marker symbol, as well as a little exclamation point that you might be able to use for your skills. My only critique was I would think it would be cool that instead of the exclamation point, if they had a 15k, but that's more of because with Malkuth, my front row gets the 15k, which makes the 10ks, so I have to do a 10 and a 5. But besides that, they're fantastic. I love the pink aesthetic. It's always been my thing. I'll always carry one 3000 on me just for Yafkael, but even for overdress, it's really, really nice because they have like the over trigger symbol on there. You got everything that you would need to play. He also does card sleeves. I've been using a lot of his clear card sleeves here. These are the ones that I've been using in BCS, and I use it at that tournament. But he also has a new one that a bunch of new sleeves he just debuted, including a more perfect fit sleeve that has like a textured background on it, and I'm really excited about that one because I really like having the textured matte versus like the matte smooth ones, and I'm not a fan of clear glossy in any style, but they're nice. And like I said, Bushy Road is very, very happy with these ones, and the new ones that he has are even a more smaller perfect fit, so they're going to be perfect for any of the regionals you've got coming up. And we're an affiliate, so check out that link in the description below to get 10% off by visiting his storefront. And guys, thank you so much. And like I said, I'm going to do my best to try to bring you guys some new content soon. And have a good day.